Okay, you guys, I wish I was older. Well, how do I look?
Wish granting is one of the most sought after abilities in any fictional universe. The ability to make a wish is also the ability to control reality itself. And obviously, many would fight to the death for even a slither of this opportunity, which fortunately or unfortunately happened. The Holy Grail War, a ritual in which 6 to 7 servants are summoned from unique classes and are forced to battle each other to the death in order to obtain the Holy Grail, a device which is said to grant any wish. However, with a ritual like this, it would be dumb to assume the US government wouldn't want a piece of the pie, and that's exactly what occurred in the Snowfield Holy Grail War. In Fate's Strange Fake, the US government and affiliated magi built a bootleg copy of the Japanese Fuyuki Grail system using stolen data, trying to recreate the same wish-granting ritual on American soil. Because their copy is incomplete and flawed, the system first produces a fake Holy Grail War with 6 irregular servants whose real job is to act as the magical fuel and stabilize the imitation Grail rather than serve as the final contestants. Once enough power is gathered, the system upgrades itself and summons a second wave of true servants, including the missing Saber class, all while the fake ones are not erased. So both sets of servants coexist, and Snowfield ends up with far more than a normal 7. Behind all this, different US factions treat the Snowfield War as a huge magical experiment and potentially weapon. They want to understand, control, and possibly mass produce the Holy Grail system rather than let foreign mage families monopolize it. And because of this, you'd be seriously screwed in the Snowfield Holy Grail War. First, the raw numbers. In a normal Holy Grail War, you're dealing with 7 servants total. In Snowfield, you have to fake and true servant lineups, so there are way more servants in the city at once, which means more random encounters, more crossfire, and way fewer safe zones. You don't just have to plan around a handful of known classes, you have to survive a battlefield where there are dozens or so demigod beings constantly clashing, scouting, or rampaging, and any of them can erase you by mistake. Second, the servants themselves are absurdly overpowered. Gilgamesh, the legendary king of Uruk from Mesopotamian myth, fights by opening portals with his treasury and firing countless legendary weapons through his noble phantasm, Gates of Babylon, which contains the prototypes of countless heroic spirit weapons. When he chooses to fight seriously, he draws his ultimate weapon, whose noble phantasm, Enuma Elish, unleashes a massive, reality-destroying blast that tears apart space itself. His ancient companion, Enkidu, the clay-born being created by the gods, can freely reshape their body into weapons or chains that regenerate by drawing magical energy directly from the earth. Their noble phantasm, Enuma Elish, O humans, let us bind the gods, summons enormous divine chains from the earth which restrain an enemy. The chains grow stronger depending on the opponent's divinity, meaning the more divine the target is, the more powerful and inescapable the restraints become. Pale Rider, inspired by the biblical horsemen of the apocalypse associated with pestilence, functions more like a supernatural plague rather than a person. Its noble phantasm, come and see, the pale horse, spreads disease and death across a wide area, while its other noble phantasm, the birds in the cage, traps victims in a nightmare-like world, representing the fear and suffering caused by the plague. Jack the Ripper, based on the infamous Victorian killer, represents the rumors and urban legends surrounding murders rather than a single historical person. This allows him to manifest in multiple forms, and his noble phantasm from hell transforms him into a monstrous embodiment of terror associated with the Jack the Ripper legend, amplifying his brutality and killing power. No-name Hassan, a field candidate for the title of Hassan, specializes in stealth and assassination using various Zabaniya techniques. Her noble phantasm, phantasmal pedigree, allows her to reproduce multiple assassination techniques associated with past Hassans, essentially granting her the abilities that normally belong to other legendary members of the Order. Alexandre Dumas, the real French novelist who wrote works like The Three Musketeers, he uses magecraft tied to storytelling and literature. His noble phantasm, and grand dictionaries allows him to manifest elements from his stories and writing, turning fictional characters and writing scenarios into magical phenomena that can influence the battlefield. Now all these were the false servants, but once the Grail gathers enough energy it summons a second group of true servants, meant to be the real participants in the war. Richard the Lionheart appears as a saber class. His noble phantasm rounds the Lionheart, allows him to summon spiritual echoes of legendary knights and companions who fight alongside him. Because of his deep admiration for Arthurian legend, Richard can also channel the concept of Excalibur, allowing him to unleash a beam-like attack through almost any object he treats as a holy sword. Alcides, a corrupted version of the Greek hero Heracles, serves as the archer class and fires devastating arrows from his bow. He possesses multiple noble phantasms tied to the legend of Heracles, including 9 lives, a technique that unleashes a rapid series of deadly attacks, and King's Order, which allows him to use weapons connected to the 12 labors. Hippolyta, the Queen of the Amazons, excels at mounted combat and overwhelming physical strength. Her noble phantasm, Goddess of War, dramatically increases her combat power and embodies the divine authority and ferocity associated with the Amazonian war goddess. Francois Perlati is a historical magician linked to the infamous Gilles race. They appear as a caster class. His noble phantasm, Grand Illusion, manipulates perception and reality itself, creating massive illusions and supernatural manifestations capable of overwhelming enemies, including gods. Hassan of the Fathomless Rift is a true bearer of the Hassan title. He is a mysterious assassin who manipulates darkness and the concept of the Abyss, fighting through stealth, ambush tactics, and supernatural abilities connected to the Void. Humbaba, the monstrous guardian of the Cedar Forest from the Epic of Gilgamesh, appears as a berserker class. He possesses overwhelming strength and terrifying authority tied to ancient Mesopotamian curses, unleashing destructive storms and monstrous attacks against his enemies. Finally, the mysterious servant, Watcher, exists primarily to observe and influence the events of the war, rather than fight directly, possessing abilities tied to perception and oversight of the Holy Grail War itself. The masters running the Snowfield Holy Grail War are far more dangerous than any of the typical magi you'd see in a normal Holy Grail War. In most Grail Wars, masters hide behind their servants and avoid direct combat, but in Snowfield, many of them are a threat of their own. One example is Jester, a dead apostle, essentially a powerful vampire that cannot be killed through normal means and can regenerate from severe damage. Then there's Flat Escardos, who looks like a goofy, carefree kid, but is actually a magician prodigy capable of extremely creative spellcasting. Tina Schillick may appear just as a young girl, but she's the priestess of an entire Native American magical clan. It commands followers who are skilled magi and sharpshooters, meaning she effectively has an army backing her. Others are dangerous from their connections. Orlando Reeve leads a powerful, magical law enforcement organization, giving him manpower, intelligence networks, and resources that could locate enemies quickly. Bastelot owns a major criminal organization, meaning if you enter Snowfield, he'll likely track you down to criminal networks and have you eliminated long before your servant even draws a weapon. I mean, he already sacrificed 24,000 people. You'll be less than a drop in the bucket. The rest of the masters are just as terrifying in different ways. Francois Prelati is an ancient and extremely dangerous mage who has been killed multiple times, but keeps returning through bizarre magical methods. And even she has a servant counterpart tied to her name. Pholdius is a government agent who has likely already gathered information on everyone involved and could simply eliminate someone with a sniper rifle before they even realize they're in danger. Sigma is a highly trained mercenary who functions like a living surveillance system, constantly observing and analyzing the battlefield while preparing to become a vessel for True Lancer. Even stranger participants include the Wolf Chimera, showing that the Snowfield system can create masters who are not even fully human. And while Haruri herself isn't particularly threatening, she's often accompanied by Ishtar, an actual Mesopotamian goddess manifested in the modern world. Because of all these factors, the Snowfield War is very different from the original Fate Stay Night conflict in Fuyuki. Here the masters aren't just commanders behind the scenes. Many of them are monsters, super geniuses, or powerful leaders with armies and intelligence networks, meaning that surviving the masters themselves can be just as difficult as surviving the servants. On top of that, not everyone involved is actually trying to win the Holy Grail. Some characters want to research the Grail system, others want to sabotage it, and some simply want to pursue their own chaotic goals. Because of this, alliances shift constantly and battles start for reasons completely unrelated to GRAIL itself. To put simply, Snowfield is the worst possible GRAIL war to enter because the rules are broken, the servants are stronger than usual, the masters are extremely dangerous, powerful organizations are watching, and the battlefield is just too overwhelming. Even if you were a skilled master, surviving long enough to actually win the GRAIL war will be incredibly unlikely.